Phone here.
No worries, just let me know. Yeah.
All right. All right. Looks like we are live. This is Mike with Fights with Friends. I'm here with Tom Atencio, entrepreneur, former VP for Affliction MMA. I just want to ask you, what do you attribute to all your success to? You've kind of done a little bit of everything.
Hey, Mike. Yeah, you know what? It just, I think it really just comes from hard work and, a lot of help in being a team player. Basically, like we talked earlier, offline, I don't think you can do anything by yourself. And I've definitely, I think like yourself, I've had a lot of help with a lot of people. I attribute, probably 90-something% to my ex-partner Todd, who passed away in 2014. And then my ex-wife, she taught me to worry about myself and do my job and do it well, and not in a selfish way, but just to stay away from all the pettiness in life that easily sucks you in. The gossip, the worried about how much other people are getting paid, that are maybe lazy or don't do as much as you do. I think when you worry about yourself and you do what you do well, I think it eventually comes back to you. And I think it's just like anything else. If you're good at what you do, the money comes later. And I think when you worry about money, I think it's really hard to obtain.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you on that. My wife has had to pull me back a lot of times. She still has to pull me back sometimes. She's like, wait a minute, calm down a little bit. And I can have a little struggle with my temper at times too, which I feel bad for her sometimes, a lot better than it used to be. But so I admire you, I think, most though for two things. One thing, in Affliction MMA, you paid fighters their worth. I mean, you went out to these guys and you paid them like the top boxing guys were getting paid. So I want to say, how much of that, I think I kind of know the answer to this, but how much of that was the business side of course, building a competitor, and how much is that just in your belief in fair fighters' pay?
Well, I mean, I'll be honest with you. I'm not. That was part of the demise of Affliction then too. So I've always said it since day one. After I guess the demise of Affliction, that wasn't me. That was Todd. Part of that was a big mistake on Todd's part, though. I think he overpaid. He wanted what he wanted, and if it was up to me, I probably wouldn't have gouged them as bad as they were being gouged, but I'll be honest with you, I wouldn't have paid them probably even half as much as Todd did, and that, quite frankly, was the demise of the Affliction fights. Overpaid, did too much, got taken advantage of, and that really was. Now, do the fighters deserve it? Yeah, I think they deserve it, but I think from a business standpoint, there's a certain amount you can pay and continue to move forward, and that was a problem. We overpaid. That is no secret.
Yeah, I mean, I do remember seeing those, and I think on one hand, of course, I was thinking, great, these guys are getting paid. This is awesome. That's a huge thing to me to see that guys are getting paid correctly. But yeah, you got a business to run too, so that's that's definitely number one. You got to stay in business before you can take care of everybody, for sure. But also another thing that I really admire you for, though, is you took 2 years away to spend time with your son, the family. Man, I wish I got a chance to do that, and I know a lot of other people wish that they got a chance to do that.
Yeah, I think it was a combination of a few things. But I never planned on having kids, and when he was born, I was 43 years old. I think it was very easy for me because of what I obtained prior to him being born,
And he's definitely everything to me. He knows he's the best thing that's ever happened to me, and I want to make sure that he has a better life than me. And I know a lot of people, say that. A lot of people want that, but a lot of people don't have the opportunity to do or give. And I definitely, in my opinion, I think being with him is something that is never, you can't. I don't think I've ever heard a father say, I spent too much time with my son. I think that's the key, is that, for me at least, I want to give him my time until he doesn't want to be with me anymore. And I'm sure that comes in the teen years, and and when that time comes, then I'll give him his freedom, and he'll be able to do the things that he wants to do. But again, yeah, I've been really, really fortunate in that aspect.
Yeah, I got two children, of course, in their teen years, as we were talking about earlier, and I want to give them their freedom some, but I can definitely be a helicopter parent. You don't want to let them go. It's tough.
Yeah, I can only imagine, and yeah, I'm not there yet, so I can only imagine.
I'm going to talk a little bit more about fighter pay. It's very important to me. What do you think about the Reebok deal in the UFC?
I think from a business standpoint, it was brilliant. From my understanding, Dana owns a portion of that. I don't know how much, I don't know what, but it's my understanding that that is part of his deal, which makes a lot of sense. But if you think about it, that's pretty much what we did. We didn't allow the fighters to wear any other clothing. Granted, we were the clothing company before we were an MMA organization, but at the end of the day, it was a way to protect the brand, and it was a way to protect from part of the problem of having these guys look like NASCAR drivers. And that was kind of the reasoning behind it. So if you think about it, that's basically what they did. They did the opposite. They were an MMA organization that had a brand, and they protected themselves. Now, having said that, it's easy to sit on the couch, and it's easy to say, this guy should be doing that, this guy should be doing this, and blah, blah, blah. Well, when you're not fighting, it's very easy to say. When you're not the owner of an organization, and you're not the person who puts your own money and equity into something, it's really easy to sit back and say, oh, well, they're not paying enough. They're not doing, until you're doing it yourself, I don't feel like you have the right to say what a company should or shouldn't be doing. The UFC bought an organization for what, $2 million. How many years did they go where they weren't making any money? They were putting all the money out. They were the ones doing all the deals. And I don't care what anybody says. You have to give the Fertittas their respect for what they did. They built a brand new organization in the world of sports. They built something that nobody else did. It's like the people who started the NFL. And at the end of the day, yeah, they put money into it, and they lost millions for years. So, in order to make a successful company, you have to do things that aren't going to be popular with people. And at the end of the day, I think that's really what it comes down to.
Yeah, I do remember, a lot of, like, you talk about the NASCAR things. When I started thinking maybe this is getting a little out of control is when I seen guys starting to come down, and nothing against them. Maybe they're a great company, but if it was my company, I don't know that I'd want Condom Depot across to fighter shorts is just coming down to the cage. That's not the image I'd, want to portray myself. So, yeah, I'm with you on that one. I'm glad that they're getting, Reebok's getting this thing down. I know there's some issues with the way some of the outfits fit at first, especially with the females. They seem to be doing a lot better job in that, and just hopefully the fighters can get their pay.
Yeah, I mean, and if you think about it, Reebok wasn't even Reebok was really nothing. They were pretty much, it was a flailing company. It was a company that nobody really even cared about, and then they got into the MMA space, and now it's a brand again. So from a business aspect, a lot of people don't look at it that they look at it the fighter side, but the fighters don't. A lot of the fighters they have nobody to blame but themselves, and the reason I say that is because a lot of these guys, you're the entity, you're your own company. And when you have somebody like Chael Sonnen, you have somebody like Conor McGregor, they get it. They understand that they have to do something and they have to be their own entity. And that's why they're so successful, because it's easy to market guys like that. It's not easy to market somebody that just sits back and fights, and they don't understand that they have to do something and talk. And whether you want to be a good guy or a bad guy, you are your business. You have to go out there, and you could be a good guy, and you can be a humble person, but you have to go out there and you have to promote yourself, and you have to be well spoken, and you have to do something on either side to make it easier for the promoter to help you get fights and promote you and be liked or disliked. People hate the Diaz brothers and people love the Diaz brothers, but at the end of the day, people pay money to go watch them win or lose, and that's what it comes down to.
Absolutely. I'm a big fan of the Diaz brothers. I wish we could get them both back in the cage. But honestly, a lot of people have gotten a lot of flack, with this talk of different fights in and out. And, it's a lot of people are a little in the dark as to exactly what's going on. But if I'm in his position, I'm holding out for the money. I'm not going in there and risking my life for $40,000, $50,000 when I know I'm one of the main draws that people want to see. I mean, that would be stupid. And people come after him, and, I got to give him a lot of credit for not, listening to the trolls, even some of the other fighters, have said some things about him. Oh, you're ducking people, you're doing whatever. Yes, I'm a pugilist. I enjoy fighting. I've been watching it since I was 10 years old in the Olympics, Roy Jones in '88. But at the end of the day, yeah, you gotta make some money. It's a very short time.
Yeah, and it's not like boxing. I mean, you do have a little bit longer life than boxers do, but yeah, I mean, and that's the problem. As a generalization, you could say that boxers, they came from, really poor beginnings, and most of them they fought to get to where they were. Mike Tyson's a perfect example of that. And he got paid millions and millions of dollars. But what people don't realize is how much money did he really get taken from him too, from the promoters, from there's a lot. So people think these boxers and everything, they make so much money, but really how much are their people that are around them take from them? So now with MMA, you get actual college educated people. You're getting middle class. You're getting white America. You're getting guys that actually have educations, and they're going into the fight industry. Well, they should be smart enough to figure all this stuff out, or they should be smart enough to at least control their money a little bit better. But I mean, I'm not here bashing anybody. I'm just stating facts, realities of things that the boxing's been around for how much longer than MMA. So it's hard to say what these guys should be getting paid. They should be getting paid fair. They're the ones who are putting their bodies through hell constantly every single day, and then getting a fight 2 times a year, 3 and 4 times a year if they're really lucky, if they're really, Donald Cerrone's, if they're guys that just will fight every time. It seems like Donald Cerrone fights more than that, but realistically, he's only fighting 3 and 4 times a year. So yeah, it's a crazy life. It's a crazy business.
Yeah, he definitely keeps his name out there for sure. A lot of people have bashed Dana White in the past. Nobody's perfect, but I mean that guy is a hell of a smart guy. He's the promoter, he's the business side of it, and to have your whole life under such scrutiny for all the way up 25, 30 years, I think 95% of the time he's handled it very well. He's obviously, you know, grown a very successful business with the Fertitta brothers, and I got a ton of respect for him.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really have anything to say about Dana. I just, you know, he is where he is, and good for him. That's, you know, I guess that's the most I can say for him.
I know you've done something he didn't do in MMA, though. You jumped in the cage. You jumped in the cage last, I think, at 42 years old?
43. Yeah, it was right before my son was born. It was actually a couple days before my son was born.
That's got to be an awesome feeling. Is there anything in business that compares to the adrenaline injection and the fear and anxiety and anything of any of that, you know, with stepping into a cage with another guy and just trying to take him out? Does anything compare to that, you think?
Yes and no. I mean, think about business. Think about if you don't come from money. Think about if you don't, if you put everything on the line like most entrepreneurs do. Yeah, I mean, it's the same. It's the uncertainty. You don't know what's going to happen. You have confidence in yourself, hopefully. You have the wherewithal to have done your homework, hopefully. But, you know, I mean, if you don't and you take things lightly, you're not going to be successful. You're going to lose all your family's money. You're going to lose all your money. So if you don't come from money and you go out and you try to do something on your own, yeah, it's the same thing. You can get knocked out. You're going to lose everything. If you happen to own a home, you can lose that. I mean, it's the same. It's just a whole different. It's just more of a mind. I don't want to say it, but mind F, you know, when it comes to business and your livelihood. So, you know, in a sense it is the same, but no, I mean, there's nothing like getting punched in the face by another man who has, if you fought before, has studied you and knows what, you know, what kinks in your armor that you have, or if, you know, you don't know. I mean, you just there's an uncertainty, but there's also that level of confidence in preparation and your teammates, and you know, having a good coach, and hopefully they did their homework too, and you believe in them, and you know, it's life. You know, you're gonna get knocked down, you're gonna fall, you're gonna get hurt. But it's just a matter of you come back and you do it again, or you don't, or you quit.
Yeah, absolutely. That's great insight, and you know, you're making me think differently, or at least opening my mind to a lot of other possibilities in your insight. It's great. I really enjoy it. I've heard you talk about the oversaturation not too long ago of MMA on television. You know, Bellator, they're putting out a lot more cards now. You got the FS1 and the pay-per-view cards. And what do you think? I think I've heard you say that it is oversaturated now, but isn't that what we wanted, was MMA every week?
You know, I guess so. I mean, again, whatever I say, you know, I mean, just so obviously people are listening, so they understand. It's my opinion, you know, and just like the old saying is, everybody has an opinion, just like everybody has an, you know. So, but at the end of the day, they're all full of crap, you know. So, in my opinion, yeah, I used to look forward to the days when there was a pay-per-view, or there was a big event, and it was every, you know, maybe every third fight of the month, or a second, you know, or there was only maybe 2, maybe 3 events a month, whatever. But again, that's just my opinion. Maybe it's just that I'm getting older and I'm not keeping track of all the fighters. There's so many fighters out there, but that's just the evolution of anything, you know. So yeah, I mean, but they're different demographics. You look at the demographic for Bellator versus the demographic for the UFC, and they're completely different. You know, I went to the Bellator event at the Coliseum, and it was still kind of and I'm sure I'll get bashed for this, so whatever. It was still kind of that mentality where, you know, people that don't even train and they think they're tough, or it goes to the ground, and people are screaming, "Get up, pussy!" I mean, really? Without how long jiu-jitsu's been around in the Americas for, and how many schools are out there now, and people are still, they don't understand the ground game. It blows me away. And you still have that mentality with the Bellator events. But I'm not saying anything bad. I'm just saying that's their demographic. That's who they went after, because the UFC had such a stronghold on the demographic that they're in, and in this area that they're in. So, I mean, in that aspect, I guess maybe it's not oversaturated. Maybe I'm just completely wrong, and I'm, just talking shit.
Well, I agree with one thing I've heard you say in the past, and sorry if I'm putting you on the spot for, things you've said in the past in interviews. Nothing I've ever thought bad. I agree with you. You said that you think maybe the UFC pay-per-view formats need to be more stacked, and maybe these FS1 cards need to be the up-and-coming fighters. I had kind of thought that before you said that. I totally 100% agree with you.
I still say that, but I must say they have been doing that. I mean, there have been some great fights from beginning to end. But you know what? I'm going to go ahead and take credit for that. Who's the one who did that? Who's the one who started that? That was Affliction Fights. That was me and Todd. Todd and I. We stacked the card because we were fans, and we made it so that the fight from beginning to end was a card that you wanted to see. It wasn't just the main event or the co-main event or three fights that were on the card. And they are doing it. The UFC definitely does it. They put on some cards lately that have been phenomenal. And I've wanted to watch, like, from beginning to end, I wanted to watch every single fight. There were fights I did not want to miss. So, I think they do it, but I mean, you got to take into consideration there's so many people out there now. There's so many fighters. And, I mean, there's going to be some good guys. There's going to be some guys that are coming up, and they have great names, and they're either going to make it or they don't. The UFC model has always been, throw them in the water. They sink or they swim. And if they swim and they make it out, then they're going to continue to move forward. And so I don't think, it's just again, it's just my opinion on some things. That's it.
Yeah. No. Well, I'm with you on a lot of that. The sale with the UFC, obviously, I mean, that's got to be just a huge, tumultuous cluster for all those guys to deal with. And this might be too early to ask this question. I don't even know if I don't really have a complete answer for this. But short term and long term, do you think it's a good thing, or do you think this is just kind of a wait and see thing right now?
I think with the company that took it on, I think I don't think I know from people that I know, it's definitely opened up a lot of different opportunities. You're looking at the movie industry, and I think that it's opened up a lot of opportunities for these fighters that are well spoken, that are maybe have personalities. That are a little bit different, and which a lot of fighters do, but I think it's opened up a lot of opportunities in the television movie industry for these guys to go. I mean, if you know Keith Jardine, I mean, that guy's been in so many movies lately, especially in Netflix and everything else. He was in John Wick. I think it was John Wick 2. And then a good friend, Tate Fletcher. He's blowing up. He's getting so much work, and that all comes from the MMA industry. And I think with the onslaught of the company that bought it, I think it opens it up for a lot of fighters to go and do a lot of things. I mean, look at all the guys that are doing the commentary now, on Fox. You're looking at. I mean, there's so many guys that are doing it now, and it's great for them because they don't have to get punched in the face. They don't have to put their bodies through hell every day. So I think it's definitely it's a good thing. It really is.
Yeah, I love to see those guys getting the opportunities. I mean, all the way back to, before that Rampage on the A-Team. I think that was awesome. Ronda Rousey in the Expendables and a few other things out there. I just watched Den of Thieves I think it was about a week ago, and Michael Bisping has a small cameo part in it, very well spoken, and Max Holloway was actually there too. And yeah, I really love to see those guys getting paid outside of the cage, especially with the things the way things went down with Michael Bisping and his eye. I just, I feel horrible about that, but I know sometimes that's the casualties of the game.
Yeah,
I'm just glad to see him getting paid.
Yeah, no, it's a brutal sport, but he has a life, with Fox doing commentary. I mean, Yves Edwards, you got all these guys that are doing really well for themselves, and it's, to me, it's nice to see. Other than they start out as fighters and they do well, they're successful, but a lot of these guys, they can excel at other things. Because they've been able to be disciplined, and they've been able to work hard, and so yeah, I mean, I think it's a good thing.
Yeah, me too. Actually, Matt Brown, I don't know if you listen to Joe Rogan's podcast a lot. I know you're pretty busy, but Matt Brown was on there the other day, and he was talking about, he's growing a company on the side with some real unorthodox training. He looked at what a lot of guys were doing. He started building wheelbarrows for people for training, running with wheelbarrows, hammers, sledgehammers, axes, and started, seeing that people really liked it, started the company, and really started building high-quality, very unorthodox tools. And seems like a lot of these guys are going towards some more unorthodox trainings like kettlebells, and which, you didn't hear much about kettlebells 8-10 years ago. So he's, after listening to him on there and Tyrone Woodley for about 2 or 3 hours, you really think, hey, I knew this guy was a great fighter, but these guys have got some great minds and entrepreneurial minds. And I think Joe Rogan, that, I don't know what you think about him, but I think his podcast is, doing a lot for fighters right now, and I'm really happy about it.
No, I definitely love Joe. Joe's awesome. Joe is actually one of the few guys in the industry that not only do I have a lot of respect for, but he definitely cares about the fighters. And Joe's just an all-around great guy. There's nothing I could ever say bad about Joe. He's just he definitely was just a very down-to-earth, very just a real person. I mean, honestly, in the whole industry, I would say Joe is one of the very few people that really was just a good guy. From the minute I met him all the way through, he definitely I don't think anybody that I've ever met deserves more success and all the success that he has more than Joe. I really don't. In the entertainment business, he was just really one of the real most genuine people I've ever met. But again, yeah, I mean, getting back to what you were saying, yeah, I mean, Sean Shirk was one of, I don't know if he still is, but he was one of the owners of the Mask. And, whether people like that or not, I mean, that thing does really, really well. And I used to love using that thing. So yeah, a lot of these guys, they have to. And Sean Shirk was one of the most, most disciplined people I've ever met. He's an amazing guy. I just talked to him a couple months ago recently. But Sean Shirk, yeah, real hard-working guy, but, wrestling background, just an animal altogether. But definitely, I know a lot of these guys, there are lives after the fights, and unfortunately a lot of these guys have had to struggle, but a lot of them are smart. A lot of them have been able to move on and do other things.
Yeah, and I'm sure a lot of that is the influence, around. They say, iron sharpens iron, of course. And I just want to bring up, I think it's a good example of Chris Leben. We all seen him come up on, I believe it was, season 1 of The Ultimate Fighter. And I just talked to him briefly a little bit back and forth last week. And we all know, the tumultuous upbringing he had, and, all of his struggles. And he's been very open about a lot of that stuff. And he's just like, man, I'm training, I'm teaching 7 days a week. I says, I got a newborn. He says, man, I'll make time for you, but I got very little time. And, it's nice for me. I feel like, I mean, I didn't know him, of course, but growing up, I grew up very poor, in a poor neighborhood. I actually got into MMA because I got tired of getting bullied and beat up, honestly, getting jumped on my way to school. So, and I think I can kind of relate to him some, and it's really nice to see those guys get those mentors, like, you know, Matt Hughes and some of the guys that take those people underneath their wings, and, you know, the guys that maybe weren't as well spoken, and they teach them. They're learning, you know, beyond the fighting, they're learning from the other fighters in the organizations how to be, as you say, you know, maybe businessmen and have a fight, you know, have a life after fighting.
Right. Yep. Yep. There's a lot of different personalities, just like anything else, any other business you're in. But you know, these guys, they struggle with a lot, and you know, I mean, it takes a lot. I don't think people really understand how much you put your body through constantly. You know, it's like, even with my son, I know a lot of people have always said, oh, is he going to be a fighter? No, hell no. I don't want him to be a fighter, and I don't have anything against fighters or anything. I don't want that life for him. If he wants to be, whole different story. Is he going to know how? Yeah, he trains every day. But at the end of the day, it's for a certain reason. I don't want him to ever be bullied, number one. Number two, you know, to me, I just don't see being a man and having somebody, you know, take advantage of you in that aspect. At least they're going to respect you. Maybe you're not the best in the world, but they'll at least respect you, and I just want that for him. Now, I want him to use his brain. I want him to know, understand. I want him to be smarter than me. I want him to have a better education than me. And to me, that's the most important thing. But again, if he wants to, I'll support him 100%, but he needs to understand it's not an easy life. And you put your body through hell constantly, and it's not the fight that's the hard part. Yeah, of course, fights are going to be hard, but it's the preparation that's hard, that putting your body through hell every single day, 5, 6, 7 days a week, and up to that event, you know, and then that's when you make your money. But if you don't, if you get hurt, you're not going to make that money, and yeah, it's difficult. It's really difficult. So no, I don't want that for him.
Yeah, I understand that for sure. You know, my kids have been watching MMA with me, I mean, since they were born, and you know, maybe I showed it to them a little too young. My idea was always I would rather have them see real violence and the actual consequences than the fake violence. But my daughter, you know, she's a sophomore, she's a wrestler at 125 pounds, and the big MMA scene over here, you know, actually Demetrius Johnson trains by us. One of her friends goes up and is trained, you know, with their guys at that gym, and she, you know, definitely wants to be an MMA fighter. Her dad's a coach, and she's going out and she's asking me, you know, Dad, can I do boxing? Can I do striking? And just everything I know about CTE and everything. I mean, for now, she's 15. I just had to put my foot down and say, you know, I love you doing wrestling. I'll teach you a little bit on the bag. I have, you know, a short amateur boxing background, but I'm like, you know, until you're old enough to make that decision for yourself, you're not getting hit in the head. And that was just my personal decision as a parent. She's done judo, she's done wrestling, and I just, you know, I just can't see my daughter getting hit in the head.
Yeah, I mean, it's just it's just a, you know, a preference thing. I mean, you have a lot of people out there that get their kids into it and box and everything else, and I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I mean, I think it's your child, but I think to me, I just don't want to push him in something that I wanted to do. I want him to be his own person, and I want him to do what he wants to do, and you know, and then support him. But yeah, I mean, it's difficult as a parent to watch your kid get hit in the head, or to watch, you know, and again, it's just my opinion. It's just what I believe in. It's just, you know, for me, I don't want to see him get punched. Again, if that's what he wants to do, that's his choice. But you know, like you said, as a parent, you want to keep them away from those dangers, and you want to keep them at least as safe as possible for as long as you can. And to me, that's just the most important thing.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. I think I kind of told her, you know, I'm like, why don't you hit the bag and, you know, maybe one day you'll spar with some pads on and maybe you can get an acting role because she, you know, she does a lot of acting and music stuff. And I'm like, that's the safer way to go. If you can get in, yeah, if you can get into a couple martial arts films.
Yeah, but you know what, Mike? I will tell you, man, these girls, they are tough as nails. And some of these girls' fights, they're better than the main event. They're better than these guys. These girls, they come out here and whether it's they have something to prove or whether they just have more heart, I don't know what it is, but damn, some of these girls, man, their fights are just second to none. I mean, I've seen some. Obviously, we've all seen some pretty amazing fights by some of these girls. So, you know, I mean, to keep them from what they want to do is a whole different story as well. That, you know, but at the end of the day, I mean, God, some of these top level girls, Joanna, you know, I mean, God, I can't even think, Ronda, I mean, all these girls. I mean, Ronda, her last fight, that was a pretty brutal fight, and she kept going. She just kept coming, and nobody's ever fought Cyborg like she did. You know, so there's been some pretty crazy fights out there, especially on the women's side.
Definitely. And speaking of Ronda Rousey, I mean, I've been a huge judo fan my whole life. So, I mean, you know, I was a big fan of Rousey. My daughter grew up, you know, watching her fights, kind of wanting to be like her. And I was glad to see her make the transition away from that after seeing those two brutal knockouts. And I mean, I can't be happy for her to be going into the WWE and hopefully doing more movie roles.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's like you said, it's like we said before, it's just natural progression. You got to do something else, and yeah, I mean, I think people figured out her game, and it's just started going downhill from there. And so, luckily for her, she has other options. You know, I mean, she's done movies, she's done other things, so. Yeah, I mean, I think it's good for her. I mean, it just shows how hard she works and everything, because, you know, I don't think you can be in the movie industry and not work hard or not prepare for what you're about to do. Otherwise, they just let you go. And I think it just shows her character. I'm sure she's an extremely hard worker.
Yeah, I mean, I've read her book. I followed her through judo. Obviously, I said, you know, I was big into the judo scene. It's been a long time ago, but at one time I was ranked number 8 nationally at 156 for under 17. So that tells you that's been like 20 years ago. But that's why I followed her. And anybody that knows what she went through and going to all those Olympics and all those fights from a kid, and I hear people say, oh, she's just going to be going sitting on the couch and doing nothing now and stuff. It's like she's accomplished more in 2 years than most people will accomplish in 10 lifetimes. So
absolutely, 100%. Yep, I agree.
For people, you know, that haven't, you know, they haven't accomplished anything and they got to bring other people down, and that's frustrating to me, but it's always going to be there.
Yeah, no, that's always going to, you're always going to have that. You're always going to have people that are, it's jealousy. It's them really knowing that they're not ever going to be anything more than what they're doing. So, but it is what it is. Like I said, you know, worry about yourself, and I think everything else will follow.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely agree with you on that. I couldn't have you on here with asking you about any Fedor stories. You were able to get Fedor when almost nobody else was able to get Fedor after Pride, and you were able to get him. What kind of interaction did you have with him?
You know, Fedor was an awesome guy. Fedor was a lot more funny than people thought. He wasn't as quite as stoic as he portrayed himself to be. I remember one time, I think we were in Korea. We were doing the press for the upcoming fights, and we had just gotten done. We just went to Russia. We were heading over to I think Japan. We were in Korea. And him and I used to joke around with each other all the time about just whatever. He spoke more English than a lot of people thought. And I remember one time we were in a limo, and he's sitting in the back, and he's not really saying anything. And you could tell he was thinking about things, and he's just sitting there. And I was talking to Vadim, Finkelstein, his manager and also promoter. And all of a sudden, just out of nowhere, he just goes, "Shut up, green Mexican frogman." And yeah, and it was just the most random thing. It was so funny because he just looked at me and just said, "Shut up, green Mexican frogman." Like, I don't know where that came from, like lost in translation. Maybe somebody told him like gringo or something like that. I don't know, but it was just the funniest thing. And that's, he was actually a really cool guy. I loved hanging out with Fedor.
That's incredible. Yeah, he's definitely one of my idols. In MMA coming up. How do you think he would have done in the UFC? Do you think in his prime, he was the best ever? That he would have beaten everybody in the UFC at the time?
It's hard to say, it's always if. I think when we had him and he was fighting, I mean, look what he did to Andrei Arlovsky, look what he did to Tim Sylvia. I think he would have been the best. But having said that, how many of the Pride guys, how many of the other Strike Force and all these other organizations, even our organization, how many of the guys transitioned from there into the UFC and did well? There was a select few. There wasn't a lot. Obviously, Vanderlei Silva, Dan Henderson. You can say, let me see, who else? Henderson. So Rampage did all right. There were, but did everybody do as well as everybody thought? No, I don't think they did. I think, again, there were a select few guys, but for the most part, the UFC had the elite, and it always has had the elite. Even the guys that we had, they were guys from the UFC. Fedor was really pretty much one of the few guys that did not come from the UFC. We had guys that came over from smaller organizations, Chris Horodesky, guys that came from IFL and all the other organizations. But, I don't know. I mean, it's easy to sit here and say, he would have done better. Don't know. I mean, but he was in his prime. And when he finally did start fighting in other organizations than ours, then look what happened. And, Fabricio Verdum was the first one to beat him. So, and where did Fabricio come from? So, I don't know. It's really hard to say.
Yeah, no, I definitely know what you're saying there. I would have liked to have seen him fight more guys in their prime, but I mean, he obviously had lot of awesome victories over in Affliction and Pride. I know you mentioned the IFL. Not a lot of people. I don't even know if a lot of people even remember that, but they're most well known for Ben Rothwell coming out of there and Roy Nelson,
Yep.
a few others. I'm sure you've seen Ray Sifo of World Series of Fighting. He's kind of merging with this Premier Fight League that's going to be on NBC Sports. They're going to have kind of a season format, kind of a tournament format, I guess, for $10 million prizes between the weight classes.
Yep.
What do you think of that? Do you think that's going to be successful? Sorry.
I don't know. I mean, it's hard to say. I think they define their niche just like Bellator did, and I think they could be successful. I mean, everybody likes the tournament format with Bellator, so why wouldn't they like it with Premier or whatever it's going to be called? And Cefo's a very well known guy. I mean, Cefo's a legitimate fighter. He was one of my favorite fighters from K1. I mean, I've seen some fights from Cepho that are just, the guy's phenomenal. He's just like Mark Hunt, but he just didn't make the transition. But yeah, I mean, I don't see why it can't. But again, it just has to find its niche market. And again, just like I said, just because I have an opinion doesn't mean it's right. It's an opinion. It's not based on fact. It's not based on research or anything else. It's just my opinion. And so when I say it's oversaturated, it doesn't mean that's only oversaturated in my mind. It doesn't mean anything. At the end of the day, Bellator found their niche. I'm sure Cepho and if they're what network did you say it was going to be with?
NBC Sports.
So NBC Sports, you're talking about top level executives, top level people. I'm sure they're not going to go and just try something and do it without research, do it without taking anything lightly. I'm sure they know the market that they're going to put it in, and yeah, I don't see why it wouldn't be successful.
Yeah, they signed Tyrone Spong. They signed, I can't remember his first name, but actually Khabib Nurmagomedov's cousin. I think he's a 135er. He's going to be in it. Khabib says he thinks he's a killer, going to be a former, a future champion. So I'm excited to see him fight. I think that's going to be a good thing. I like to see MMA all year round, but yeah, maybe it'll get a different fan base in there.
Yeah, exactly. So, like I said, I'll watch it. I like the fact that it's on FS1. I like the fact that UFC's on FS1. I like when it's on it. Pay-per-view, it's a little, sometimes it's a little, I'll end up going to a bar or something instead of paying for it at home. But again, my opinion means nothing at the end of the day. The numbers and everything that's going on, that's what means everything. If the numbers are there and people are paying or people are watching it, then what I have to say means nothing. That's what I think's funny. Is like, don't put stock into what I have to say. It's just my opinion.
Well, you obviously have a lot of experience. You've been around the sport a lot, so I think you're cutting yourself a little bit short on your knowledge, but I understand what you're saying. I used to watch most of these fights in bars and restaurants too, just because I enjoyed being around other MMA fans, and that's one of the big reasons that I changed this channel to Fights with Friends is I try to do something a little different. I'm commentating on the fights. Obviously, I can't show it or I would be demonetized even if they're watching it. But we're going back and forth in the chat. And I'll tell you, 5.5 hours last night of dealing, going back and forth with people, commenting, kicking your trolls out, commentating, and concentrating on the fight. It gives me that experience a little bit, like being around fight fans and stuff. But it was definitely pretty draining last night in 5.5 hours, but a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, I mean, but it's fun and you're doing something that you love. So I totally understand that. And I mean, again, I love the MMA industry. I think I just I've been in it virtually since '94. I mean, since the very first one. When I got involved in '94 when Joe Moreira moved out here to California, I helped put on jiu-jitsu events for Joe. I actually got Coca-Cola as a sponsor. I think it was in '96 when they knew nothing about. They didn't even know what it was. So I used to help Joe put all the tournaments on that he was putting on, and big events, or UC Irvine, all these events. So, realistically, I've been involved since '94, and, I used to drive to Northern California to watch the IFC, which was a smaller organization owned by a guy named Paul Smith, really, really cool guy. I watched Diaz fight Jeremy Jackson. Back in the day, I watched him fight 3 times. So I've seen the Diaz brothers since day one, since they were kids, like 15, 16 years old, maybe even 14. Yeah, I've been in this industry a long, long time, and now I just have other priorities. It's, I love the industry. I still watch it. It's absolutely my favorite, but I just have other priorities now.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, family. Family comes first before everything. But I'm sure that you're still training and keeping in shape, I imagine.
Nope, I'm fat and I'm miserable, but I mean, it is what it is. I let myself get giant, but like I said, it is what it is. My son trains, and he trains with Marco Huaz, and Marco's become a really, really good friend over the years, and I have nothing but the utmost respect for him. So yeah, I'm still involved a little bit in the industries, but no, I don't train. I wish I did, and I definitely need to start getting back in there. But I'm 51 now, and it's just you know, like I said, my priorities are elsewhere.
Yeah, legend Marco Huas. That was one of, I remember, I think it was UFC 7 when he was fighting Paul
Yep.
Varlins, and he stopped him with those leg kicks. And
Yep.
I'd seen that in Thai boxing because I used to rent the Thai boxing VHS tapes that we couldn't get over here. But that's the most brutal display of leg kicks, I think, I want to say, in UFC history up to this
I think
point.
so too. I agree. I'm a little partial. I mean, like I said, he's become a really good friend and love Marco to death. But yeah, I mean, not to mention the foot stomps, you know, and you know, Marco was the very first true mixed martial artist, you know, and people don't understand that. People don't realize that Marco, as a kid, he trained, and you know, I think it was boxing that he first started doing, Western boxing, and he really enjoyed it. Then he did capoeira, he did lucha libre. I mean, he did so many different things, and he realized that, okay, if this guy is a jiu-jitsu practitioner and he's better than me on the ground, then guess what? I'm not going to let him take me to the ground. I'm going to stand and bang with him and make him fight my fight. Well, if this guy's a boxer and he's better on the feet, then I'll take him down, and I'll do a leg lock. Marco was the very first person to have the wherewithal to put everything together and realize that, yeah, you're going to have weaknesses, so you make that person fight to your strengths. And that's one of the things that I just love about Marco. And other than the guy that he is, you know, he's the father of true mixed martial arts. And I really don't think anybody out there, you know, put it together like he did. I really don't, and that was proven in UFC 7.
Well, I'm glad you brung up his name, because a lot of these guys that are maybe, you know, in their 20s and haven't been watching MMA as long need to go back and watch some of his fights, because yeah, he was definitely one of my favorite fighters, him and a lot of other ones, and just watch the evolution of the sport. But yeah, I agree with you. He did things that guys just didn't have answers for at the time.
No, and you know, I mean, and when he fought in the UFC, a lot of people don't know either that he came in with an infection in his hand. He was up until 4 o'clock in the morning at the hospital, and the doctors told him he can't fight. He looked at the doctor and he said, "You're crazy. This is my one chance. There's no way I'm not going to fight." And not only did he fight and win, but he fought 3 times that night, and he won. And in the Paul Varlins fight, you could see him. When he gets on top of Paul Varlins and he punches him, he switches hands and he starts punching with the other hand, because he first hit him with his hand that had the infection in it. So what happened was he was doing a photo shoot, and they were at a gym, and it was a dingy, just gross, just disgusting gym. And the photographer said, "Hey, there's a broken window. Can you put your hand through that like you put it through?" Well, when he put his hand through it, when he brought his hand back, he cut his hand and it got infected. And that was a couple days before. And then, like I said, the night before, he went in there and he had like a staph infection or whatever it was. And the doctors told him he couldn't fight. He wasn't going to fight. So, I mean, think about that. Most people would have pulled out the fight. He went through it and won 3 fights in one night. You know, so people don't realize that this guy's a man's man. He's truly a man's man, and it's just not somebody you want to mess with.
Yeah, for sure. I know he was really popular in Brazil before anybody even knew him, or most people knew him in the States. I'd heard about him for a lot of years. Like I said, watching, you know, different kickboxing and Thai boxing VHS, because we couldn't even get it on TV back then, you know, in the early 90s, even before UFC. And
Exactly.
yeah, definitely a legend of the sport.
Yep, Marco's is a great guy, you know, and he's good to my kid, and he's just a great guy. So.
Well, great mentor and great guy to have around your family, and you're a great guy. I got to say, I appreciate how easy you are to talk to, and how humble. Just let everybody know, you're like the most humble guy, and you act like you haven't hardly accomplished anything. And I'm just looking at your accomplishments, and in my mind, it's just like, how has this guy had enough lifetimes to get all this done? And you're just like, oh, I'm just a normal guy.
No, I think, I honestly, Mike, I think it's just, I don't think I would have ever been where I got had it not been for the people that I surrounded myself. And Todd Beard was definitely one of them. I mean, Marco, obviously, Joe Moreira. I consider myself a team player, and I know my weaknesses, and I know that a lot of the things I did, it was supported by other people doing their jobs, and I think that's one of my biggest things. Is like, even now where I work, I work for a good friend of mine, Jeff Clark, who has. Right now we have 7 locations, Crunch Fitness locations in San Diego, and 5 of them are open right now. 2 more are opening up, and really what it comes down to is I just do my job. I do what I do, and it's computer graphics and the marketing side of it, and I do it, and I just focus on that, and that's what I do. And the business side of it and everything else, that's what Jeff does. And I've tried doing it all on my own, and I can't. That's just the truth. I'm just not that guy. But if I have a job and I know that my partners, or I know that the people that I'm working with are doing their job, then yeah, I know it's going to be successful, because I can do what I do, and I can make sure that I do the follow through, and I can make sure that I do what I do well. And as long as the other parts are working, then I think that's really what it comes down to, is people can be successful. But I think when you have people that are tyrants, and I think that when you have people that act like they did it themselves and nobody else helped them, I think that's where their problems come in. I just, yeah, there are going to be some people that can do it themselves, but for the most part, you can't do anything unless you have the workforce, unless you have the help from other people, and I think that's really what it comes down to. And yeah, some people end up getting all the glory, and some people end up getting all the recognition, but I will absolutely, unequivocally say that I wouldn't have been where I was had it not been for Todd Beard, 100%. And he was a pain in the ass, and he was a nightmare to deal with sometimes. But at the end of the day, he got things done, and he pushed you farther. Kind of like a Steve Jobs, where he pushed people, and people hated him, but he pushed people to get more and better out of them. And I think that's really what it comes down to. I'm not that guy. I'm not that guy that's going to take all the credit for everything. So I appreciate what you said, but that's just the truth.
Well, I appreciate all your time here. I heard your son in the background. I know you probably want to spend some time with him today. So I think if you're good, if there's nothing else you want to talk about, I think maybe we'll wrap this up.
No, I appreciate your time. I appreciate you having me on and reaching out to me, and I look forward to hearing everything.
Hey, definitely. Thank you very much. One of the classiest guys in MMA, I believe, Tom Atencio, guys. Please share this video and pass it along. And thank you so much again, Tom. I hope to hear from you again.
All right, Mike. Take care. Pleasure.
Thank you. Take care. My pleasure.